Welcome back. Thom Hartmann here with you. And there's an election happening late tonight, early tomorrow in the UK. Theresa May, the current prime minister, is kind of, well, let's let Victoria Jones, our friend and typically our reporter for Talk Media News, but herself of British ancestry, I guess would be a way to say it, but a U.S. citizen. Tell the story. Victoria, welcome back to the program.
Thank you very much.
It is always so nice to talk with you, and particularly on these topics where I frankly, I feel like I should know a lot more and I don't. So tell me about, real quickly, why did Theresa May call for this essentially snap election?
The snap election, which surprised everybody because they had an election 2 years ago, and everybody went, oh, for crying out loud.
Right.
The last thing we need. Well, because Theresa May, who was not elected by the people, you remember, she was elected by her party when David Cameron, the previous prime minister, stepped down ignominiously after he lost the Brexit vote.
Oh, that's right. That's right. He had said, if this country goes for Brexit, I'm out of here. Right. And yeah, okay.
And unlike politicians in some countries who don't keep their word, in Britain, if you do that kind of thing, you actually have to go.
So she was sort of like Jerry Ford after Nixon.
Yeah, she was elected. In England, the prime minister, who is a member of parliament, is elected within the party. And she wasn't really expected to be elected. She's the former Home Secretary, which is the Interior Minister, which we'll come to shortly, which is responsible for borders, immigration control, terrorism, hey, things like that. And she's quite a good politician. She's 59 years old, and she's been in politics for a good 20 years. Anyway, she emerged as the front runner through various reasons, and she became the prime minister. And she needs to negotiate Brexit, which she was against and is now for. And she thought that she had a majority, not a very big majority, but she was doing really well in the polls, 20 points ahead. And she thought, hey, I'm going to have a snap election, 20 points ahead. I can get a really big majority because I need a big majority. I need my party behind me for these negotiations with Europe. And I can do it. Well, it didn't work out like that because she has campaigned very robotically. She's refused to debate with her rivals, and so she's been called a coward publicly on television. And then she said that, you know, that she's strong and she's not for turning and all these things. And then she's had to turn because some of her policies, one in particular, the dementia tax, has been so unpopular that she withdrew it. And then, of course, we've had 2 or 3 terrorist attacks in the last 3 months.
And several of the terrorists were known to her when she was the Home Secretary, and it was her job to put her thumb on these guys.
Right.
And that doesn't help her either.
No.
Now, her principal opponent in this is Jeremy Corbyn, who is, sort of the Bernie Sanders of the UK. Would that be a reasonable characterization?
Yes, he's a member of what is known in the UK as the loony left.
Okay.
Affectionately known as the
Right.
loony left, but he's a 68-year-old, bearded, rumpled guy who is no longer rumpled for the campaign. He now wears blue suits and ironed shirts, which is noted because he didn't used to.
Uh-huh.
And he's very much to the left of his party, also accidentally became leader of his party. He was put in for the leadership position really sort of to swell the numbers and almost as a joke, but became the leader. And nobody expected him to do anything. And in fact, he did get a no confidence vote by his party not very long ago. But what's happened is that young people have really become very excited by him. He's speaking to them. People are getting pretty sick and tired of the cuts and the austerity of the Conservatives, known as the Tories, particularly to things like the health service, senior services,
Public education,
public education, any number of things. And he is promising to nationalize the rail system again, which people are really sick and tired of having problems with, and do a lot of things. And he's speaking to people, and he's saying that it's going to be government for the many, not for the few.
Now, one of the things that has happened in the UK since Rupert Murdoch first showed up there is, which was back, what, maybe 30 years ago?
Yeah.
Is that the media in the UK has gone from being largely independent. I mean, the Times of London was always kind of regarded as like the New York Times, sort of the paper of record and, you know, notoriously down the middle and all this kind of thing. Murdoch now owns that. He owns a bunch of other newspapers, and not just him. Correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is that with the exception of The Guardian, virtually all of the major newspapers in the UK are owned by people or groups or corporations that have a right-wing agenda and that spin them hard right. And if that media landscape, if that's an accurate description of the British media landscape, I'm just astonished that Jeremy Corbyn is within spitting distance of, in the polls, of Theresa May.
Yeah, it's really interesting. The Daily Mirror also leans left, and The Independent is pretty independent, but nobody reads it, so it doesn't really matter. Right. That's right. It is very surprising, and it is really a sign, I think, of discontent with Theresa May and of a sort of insurgency towards Jeremy Corbyn. And of discontent with Theresa May and of Tory policies. The difficulty, of course, is, and it is in many countries, including this one, is who is actually going to show up at the polls.
Right.
And young people in the UK are much, much less likely to vote, even though 1 million young people have registered to vote just since the election campaign began. So will they vote tomorrow? That's the big question. And the polls over there, which are notoriously unreliable, do have the election tightening a great deal from 20 points down to between 12 and 1 point.
Yeah. And I saw the one this morning from the various retailers where they were doing polls of people. That was fascinating. Would it be fair to say, Victoria Jones, that what we're looking at in the UK is not dissimilar to what we looked at in the United States in the last presidential election, and that is a broad dissatisfaction with neoliberal policies, with these essentially austerity policies, semi-libertarian policies that were introduced by Margaret Thatcher in the UK and Ronald Reagan in the United States, that the more left-leaning parties, Labour in the UK, the Democratic Party in the United States, moved to the right to accommodate those. In the United States, it was the DLC and all that sort of stuff. In the UK, I'm not sure if there was a mechanism. It was New Labour, actually. It was Tony Blair declaring New Labour. We're going to reinvent it as kind of the little more conservative version. And it's not working. It's reducing. It's increasing inequality. Inequality in the UK is close to levels of the United States, which are among the worst in the world, the developed world anyway. And there's this general sense that this was a failed experiment that was started in arguably 1978.
I think that's true. I think it's true that that movement by Labour did not work long term, and but I think also that some of the more far left positions of Labour have also not worked, and Labour's struggling to find itself, but is starting to do so, and championing the National Health Service, for example, talking about renationalizing the rail services, talking about Britain for the many, not for the few, talking about taxation, even though its taxation plan doesn't add up. Well, at least they've got a taxation plan. The Conservatives' taxation plan sort of doesn't even seem to exist as far as, people who are experts in taxation are concerned.
Interesting. So do you have any predictions? And also, when can we expect to know something tomorrow?
Well, the polls are open from 7 o'clock in the morning until 10 o'clock at night. So it's really a long time. The BBC will do its first exit poll at 5 o'clock Eastern, our time, the minute the polls close. So we should have an idea then. No exit polling is allowed until that time. So 5 o'clock Eastern should get a sense of it. I think we'll probably start to get results early Friday morning. My prediction is if young people show up and vote, we should get a much closer result. I do not think there's going to be a hung parliament, which means there's no majority. I think that's unlikely. Right. I think that the polls are, again, wrong. I don't think she's going to get a sweep. I do not.
Yeah, interesting. And are they voting on paper in the UK these days?
I don't know.
Okay.
Haven't done it for a while. Okay,
that's right. You're a U.S. citizen. Victoria Jones, always great talking with you, Victoria. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll be back.